All right, so today we're diving deep into the Banu.
Okay.
And looking at the sources you sent, it seems like you're already past the basics.
Yeah.
Which is great. So we're going beyond like the whole trading thing, you know,
Right.
and getting into the stuff that I think really makes you wonder, like, do we even really know these guys?
Yeah, it's really interesting because when you look at the Branu, you see how much their everyday life is like embedded in their culture.
Oh, okay.
Like we're talking about the way they do business, their family structures, even just like how they greet each other.
Yeah.
It's all really fascinatingly connected.
Well, and speaking of connections, you highlighted something that I thought was interesting, the Suli.
Yeah.
Now, most people kind of know it's important, but your sources suggested it's more than just a family business.
Oh, yeah. It's way more than that.
So, like, how would you even explain that?
So imagine like your family eyes the business.
Yep.
And that the apprenticeship lasts your entire life.
Whoa.
It's kind of like those old world guilds, but like taken to the extreme.
Okay.
Like you're born into it, you're raised in it, and your whole life revolves around them.
So it's not even just your career, it's your whole identity.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you sent some research papers that went into detail about this, and particularly how diverse the whole system is.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just about starships.
No, not at all. Like
Right.
there's a Suli for basically everything in Banu society.
Really?
You could have one that's dedicated to like engineering starship drives, and then another that's totally focused on like cultivating a rare spice.
Wow.
There are even Sulis that are devoted to specific deities, like Casa.
Okay, so let's get into Casa, because you highlighted a few things about this deity,
Right.
and it seems like their influence goes way beyond just typical religious practices. Like,
Yeah.
you pointed out that Casa is often depicted holding a scale.
Yeah, and that's really interesting because it ties directly into how the Banu view things like prosperity.
Okay.
It's not just about like amassing wealth, but it's about this sense of balance and fairness
Oh, okay.
and making sure that your ventures are going to have continued success.
Interesting.
And this focus on prosperity even influences like their greetings.
Huh.
You're not going to hear the Banu just saying hello to each other.
Right.
They'll say things like, "May Casa smile upon your ventures today."
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a perfect example.
Yeah.
That's so cool how even just a greeting can tell you so much about their values.
Exactly.
But going back to the Sulis, like with all this variety, what kind of Suli do you think you would be drawn to if you were Banu,
Oh, wow.
based on your own interests and skills?
That's a fantastic question. And it makes you realize how all-encompassing this whole system is in their society.
Yeah.
It's not just a job. It's like woven into who they are.
Wow.
It really makes you think about how a system like that, like, really impacts their approach to things, like even just business.
Well, that's a perfect segue, because you sent in this article about their business practices.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, it is a far cry from like your typical human boardroom experience.
Oh, absolutely. It's completely different.
So, okay, picture this. You're about to close this huge deal.
Okay.
But instead of everybody like shaking hands and signing contracts, everyone pulls out ingredients
And what?
and starts making a drink together. That's where it gets interesting.
Yeah, that's slumma,
Okay.
which is like this central ritual in their culture.
So it's not just like some weird alien cocktail hour.
Right.
Like, there's a reason behind it.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I mean, on the surface, it seems kind of quirky,
Yeah.
but it serves a lot of like practical and symbolic purposes.
Okay.
For one, it actually acts as like a safeguard against poisoning
Oh, wow.
because everyone's drinking from like the same source.
So like building trust through shared risk.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense.
And that's actually why they don't really like written contracts.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
Yeah, it all ties into that.
Okay.
Because it's about transparency and genuine intent.
Right.
They're putting their money where their mouth is,
You have
basically.
to clearly.
Right,
Oh,
exactly.
okay.
It's like we're all in this together. We're sharing the same risks, the same reward.
So you're saying it's not like a one-size-fits-all kind of thing?
Oh, definitely not.
Because your research mentioned that some Banu, like it hot, some like it cold, some even ditch the drink entirely and go for food.
It's true, yeah.
I actually tried making slow-mo once.
Oh, really?
I found a recipe online.
How was it?
Let's just say my kitchen hasn't recovered.
Oh, no.
But it does make sense that it's not just one thing.
Yeah.
Because that seems to be a theme with the Banu.
Yeah.
Like they always have this variety.
It's part of who they are.
Yeah, and this whole idea of trust and shared fate, it really seems like it goes beyond just business.
Right.
And, you know, speaking of which, you sent in this other article about Banu philosophy. And this article really stood out to me because it connected with that.
Okay.
Yeah, this article you found about their philosophy, it was really interesting. It's
Yeah.
like their whole worldview is tied into these concepts we've been talking about, like trust and shared fate.
It's true. Understanding a culture goes beyond just looking at the tangible aspects.
Right.
It's about understanding those intangible beliefs.
Yeah, and with the Banu, we hear a lot about luck.
Right.
But it feels like it's more nuanced than just, carrying around a lucky rabbit's foot.
Exactly. It's not just superstition.
Okay.
It's deeply rooted in their idea of prosperity, fortune, success.
Which makes sense for a society built on trade.
Precisely.
So like with Casa, we
Yeah.
see them everywhere,
Yeah,
right?
everywhere.
But their influence seems to go beyond just like formal religious stuff.
Absolutely. Casa represents the kind of prosperity that's crucial for a society that thrives on trade.
So it's less about like winning the lottery
Right.
and more about ensuring the success of your ventures.
Exactly. Think favorable winds for their ships. New trade routes? No.
Oh, okay.
Just this overall sense of well-being for the Banu people.
It's like aligning yourself with the forces that bring abundance.
Yes, exactly.
Yep. It reminds me a bit of how some humans view Stella Fortuna,
Oh yeah, good comparison.
like guiding new ventures, taking those leaps of faith.
It's the same idea, but what's fascinating is how differently each culture celebrates it.
Yeah, we see humans making offerings at temples or carrying talismans.
Right, while the Banu incorporate their beliefs into their everyday interactions.
Like that greeting we talked about.
Exactly.
It's amazing how these little differences can be so revealing.
It's true.
And speaking of different approaches, you also mentioned the Banu's openness to new deities.
Yeah, like Ternan the Great Traveler.
Right, versus something like our human Church of the Journey.
Interesting contrast.
Right, because both are centered around journeys, but with totally different philosophies.
The Church of the Journey is all about minimizing their impact, like a mindful exploration. The Banu, on the other hand, see journeys as chances for expansion trade encounters with the new.
Like welcoming Terranin into the pantheon.
Exactly.
It really highlights how important it is to get these nuances when you're dealing with the Banu.
Absolutely.
It's not just about speaking the language.
It's about understanding the why behind their actions.
Yeah, and that understanding becomes even more important when we look at the more complex parts of their society.
Right, like the concept of Banu indenture.
Which is often misunderstood.
Yeah, people often equate it with slavery.
When it's really not that simple.
Not even close,
Yep.
but that's a deep dive for another time.
Oh man, a cliffhanger.
Maybe we'll come back to that.
Well, listeners, we've explored the Suli system, demystified the ritual of Sloma,
It's been quite a journey.
and we even dipped our toes into Banu philosophy.
Their culture is endlessly fascinating.
It really is, and as we've learned, there's always more to discover.
Always something new to learn.
So until next time, keep those curiosity engines running.
Yeah, may cast a smile upon your ventures.